There you are. Hi. Good morning. Let's see if I can make my background the Thunder Laser logo. Change layout. No. Okay. That's okay. Hello, everyone. We're gonna wait for the next couple minutes and then we'll start promptly at 9 PST. But in the meantime, feel free to type in where you're from and what you're curious about. What are your main questions so we can make sure to touch on them during the webinar? And I'm going to put my background to something more interesting. I know I have a Thunder Laser one, but I might have to upload it.
You hear me no problem?
Pardon?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep, everything's good.
Okay.
I think I need the smallest logo possible because I remember last time it was like the size of the whole screen. There it is. That's the one. I think that's the one. Let's see if this works. There's Ron. Good morning, Ron.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good
Hi.
morning. Good afternoon, I should say.
Yes. Yeah, good afternoon from your region.
Where are you? Are you in Quebec?
Ontario, Ottawa.
Ontario, Ottawa. Excellent. I lived there for 5 or 6 years, long time ago.
Nice and cold and wet, humid.
Yeah. Well, I think we might have you on the wet and humid, but yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
It was a long time ago, but last time I was in Ottawa, it was in November, and I woke up and it was like a beautiful sunny day. It was walking around in a t-shirt weather. And then at about 3 o'clock, it dropped like 15 degrees and it was fucking freezing. And I was only in a t-shirt. I thought I was going to die.
The weather's been weird here. Like last winter, it was nice and no snow. And sometimes in March, you get dumped by like 6-7 feet of snow. You're like, eeh.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like growing up in Ontario for sure. So we have 2 Jeans. Oh, are these? We've got 2 Jeans, and then we've got Mark. Oh, I see Mark's logged in twice somehow, but that's okay. Patty. So we've got everyone starting to log in here, and we'll start in like 2 minutes. But yeah, feel free to type something in the Q&A of the chat saying what your main questions are, just so we can make sure to touch on them. Shannon's flight's going to be later now, so he might be able to pop on while he's waiting at the airport. So
he was coming to BC, and it's too windy, and they canceled his flight last night.
Yeah, they like turned it around. So I was waiting at the airport and then seeing all these people and being like, why is it like, where is everyone? They didn't come out. Worst time to have your phone die. Yeah, I had to like go to a rest stop and try to charge my phone to see what happened, and then all the places locally, their power had gone out. So I was like, okay, that answers the question. What happened? Awesome. Okay, give it one more minute. Let's see if Shannon pops on here. It's okay if he comes late. It's a support person today, not a main presenter. So if he wants to add his 2 cents in the chat, he can. Okay, it's officially 9 o'clock. So if Shannon pops on, that's okay. Okay, so hello everybody. Thanks for coming to our webinar. The topic is upgrading or adding a laser to your workshop from a CNC, and just kind of highlighting some of the differences in the tools and sort of the benefits of the laser. I've got with me today Stephane and Ron, which I'll introduce in a second. I'm Z Kessler. I'm the marketing manager. If you ever are on social media, you'll be talking to me. I also support with the education programs, which we're starting up. And yeah, I also obviously do the webinars and the events. We're just about to head to Vancouver in 2 days to do an event with some schools. So really excited for that. So how I came into the laser world was I've been involved with maker spaces for many, many years. When Maker Faire came to Canada, my best friend was one of the people who organized the event. And how I met Shannon was he came to our Maker Faire and it was like, I want to do the same thing. Like, tell us what you know. He runs a maker space out of Calgary. So we just have known each other for maybe 10 or 15 years, just sort of because we're in the same community. And that's how we came to be involved with lasers. It's an amazing tool for makers and inventors and people who are starting small businesses to be able to mass manufacture and do it from home. So it's an amazing tool. And we came to this Thunder laser specifically, very honestly, in the fact that we had tried lots of other laser brands over the years, but this is the one that really stood out as being really easy to teach beginners, especially out of makerspace where you've got all these different levels of expertise. I'll let Shannon talk about that more when he pops on. But yeah, that's me. And so I'll introduce Ron next. Ron is here on the same island that I live on. So that's just an amazing coincidence, but he happens to also be a Thunder Laser customer.
That's actually how I met Z. I bought a Thunder laser, and then I was told, oh, one of the women who works for us lives there. And now we're both here. I'm Ron, Ron Crown. As said, I live on Gabriola Island. About 10 years ago, I invested in a CNC machine, a Cam Master Stinger 3. Has a full 4x8 table, has a rotary attachment, all the little goodies. And I started doing making things locally, signs, furniture, whatever anyone wanted, as a side hustle to my full-time job. About a year ago, I bought a Thunder laser at 35-100 Nova, and now now I have both, and I'm running both. And because the laser's new, I've had it a year. It gets 85% of my attention these days, but I still love my CNC, and I like combining them together into into projects I couldn't do alone with either one.
Yes, and then we have Stephane Chassels, who's one of our awesome ambassadors, and he happens to have 2 of our lasers now. So if you want to introduce yourself, Stephane.
Hi, I'm Steph Chassels. I live in Ottawa. I'm a hobbyist, and I started off actually with construction work, doing roofs and bathrooms and working on the side. And then as a maker, I started off with a Cricut just to make labels. And that kind of escalated to a CNC and then a laser to customize more of my stuff. And like Ron said, I love my CNC, but the laser is a pretty good piece of machine that goes quick and dustless.
Awesome. I'm sure most of you feel like you already know Stephane from the ad you probably clicked on. So we'll sort of give a little bit of a background of sort of Ron and Stephane. But first, Shannon's popped on here. And do you want to introduce yourself? Shannon's the Thunder Laser, I don't know. I always call him the Thunder Dad, but he doesn't like that. So are you able to unmute there, Shannon? I know he's in the airport.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm having a mildly frustrating journey, is the Odyssey, I guess. I flew all the way to Nanaimo yesterday, and they flew above the airport a little bit, decided they couldn't land, and then flew us back to Calgary. And then I got in and got back, and I missed my first flight, and now I've been scheduled for a second flight. So and they damaged all my luggage when they, it's just a big mess. Anyway, I'm in Chili's eating breakfast. So, yeah, to kind of add to what Z was saying, I did mention how we met in the maker community, and I run a maker space in Calgary, where I did run it. My partner mostly runs it now, and I run Thunder Laser. We had several different lasers, and I was just happy with like how much better Thunder was from a safety and ease of use, and kind of like a reliable machine in our makerspace. So we ended up buying a second Thunder and recommending it to people, and then Thunder asked us if we would participate in, or we're helping them sell machines, and that's kind of how we got involved. But yeah, that's my story, I think, in a nutshell. I'm gonna mute again, or did you have any more questions for me?
Well, that's good for now. Yeah, if you want to mute, you can do that.
Just like, let me know if you want me to jump on, and I'll be eating and listening.
Okay, I can take you off presenter if you want, so we don't have to watch you eat. Okay. Actually, I don't even know how to do that. Never mind. We're just gonna have to watch you. Okay, so I'll start off with the story. So with both Ron and Stephane, you sort of touched on it briefly. What led you to start making signs and doing woodworking to begin with?
For me, I just always made things. It's just, I mean, I grew up a farm boy in Ontario, and we made everything, we fixed everything. It's always been a part of what I do. Buying the CNC was a decision to make extra money. I worked in the animation industry. It's very contract to contract. You get large gaps between those contracts. So I was looking for a way that I could do something I enjoy, making things, and make money at it. So I did quite a bit of research, and that was 10 years ago. I looked into lasers, but they were, astronomically priced, and this idea of having one on your desktop didn't really exist. So I bought the CNC, and then, that's the whole thing about being on an island, being in the community. As soon as the truck came off the ferry, half the island knew I bought a CNC, and within a short amount of time, somebody was like, "Oh, I need a sign. Oh, I need this." New stores were opening, display units, furniture. It's just very, very easy to build a word of mouth business in a small community like this. As long as you keep doing good work, it's very easy to lose that as well. And so I just kept doing that, and it seemed normal. And I have to admit, a big part of it was just making my own cool stuff, like slingshot rifles and things that you couldn't buy. But I saw that there was a need. I saw that it was going well. But the more and more I looked, the more and more to fit with what I did and the timing I had, I wanted to sell smaller, better priced, well, not better, lower priced projects, right? Like, you can sell a $2,000 kayak frame once, right? But I thought I'm going to sell a whole bunch of things for $25. And that's where the laser really came in. So when I say it gets most of my time, it does. But I should also point out that the projects I make have changed a lot. They're not the same projects I would make on the CNC.
Great. Yeah, I've seen some of Ron's projects. And when I first moved to this island, I didn't realize all the signs I was seeing he had made all around for our local businesses. So that's really neat. Stephane, do you want to give us sort of an intro? I know you mentioned it in the video, but yeah, what sort of led you to woodworking? Had you done it your whole life, or was this just something you started exploring more so as a side gig? Or
Yeah, I've always been pretty handy, like I said, doing construction work or building decks and stuff like that. And I'm a shift worker. I'm a firefighter with the city of Ottawa, so I got a lot of time on my hands. So I work a few days a month or 7 days a month, and then I got time off. My kids were young, and then I'm like, maybe I should pick up a hobby. So I have been looking at a glow forge for as soon as they came out, and then it was way too much. And then they said it was supposed to be good for the house, and I was kind of, as a firefighter, you could catch fire type thing, or working with heat and stuff like that. So anyway, I ended up waiting a few years, and the CNC were kind of affordable, so I bought a CNC just before COVID, and pretty much made a sign pretty quick, and I put it on Facebook Market, and I got I sold it. I got like 80 hits. People wanted it right away, and I sold that right away. Obviously, my price was a little too cheap. So I made another one, and of course that sold. And then people were asking me if I could do some other stuff, and I did. And then there was actually a local biker community that reached out and asked me to do a symbol, and I did. And then I was going through my phone trying to show the pictures, but the pictures were my family, stuff like that. It was a biker gang. So I ended up opening an Instagram account. And then from then it just grew. And then with the CNC was fine, but then I wanted to put my branding or my name in the back. I was looking at lasers that goes onto the CNC, and that was expensive, but for what you get. And I end up looking at other companies, and I end up with a Thunder laser. And then from the Thunder laser, the quality and the fastness of the laser is pretty much created a lot of signs, and it hasn't stopped since then.
Sorry, see, I admit I did a lot of research before I bought the laser, because having the CNC router before, I knew what I was getting into. So I didn't just, pick the best deal or whatever. I spent a lot of time, and by far Thunder laser hit every point for me. It was reasonably priced. It was an awesome machine. I've been running it steady for a year now and haven't had a single issue. I highly recommend it. I also want to point out, just in general, when we say CNC, we're referring to the CNC router, right? But technically, all these machines are CNC. The Cricut, the laser, the desktop printer, they're all CNC computer controlled. But just for reference, if people aren't sure, when we're talking and we just say CNC, we're referring to the router, not the other machine.
Exactly. Yeah. I know a lot of people will just use that as the shorthand for the router.
Mm-hmm.
But so when you were first learning how to do the sign making and all that, like, what did you like about the process of making the signs or making different objects on the CNC, or using a scroll saw or whatever? Like, what attracted you to continue doing it?
For me, right off the bat, well, I did some signs before with a jigsaw, and then the lines, of course, you're a jigsaw, you're freehanding it. The lines are a little wonky, a little shady. It's not accurate. With the CNC, when I started with that, you put in computer, you figure out your file, you G codes, and you put it on the board, and it's accurate. It's flawless. It's there. It's almost like a store-bought sign. So my OCD kicked in high gear. I'm like, this is awesome. And then once I figured out the programs and I could copy an image and transfer it to the computer and then to the CNC, it was always bang on. Same with the laser. Laser is same system, same sort of files. But with the laser, you get a lot more production going on and a lot more intricate designs compared to the CNC.
When I bought my CNC router, at that time, I was making skin-on-frame kayaks. It's a fuselage style, so a lot of cutting of plywood. And I was doing it with a jigsaw. And to cut out a kayak was taking 2 to 3 days by hand with the jigsaw. After I got the router and I learned how to use it and optimized my cutting time, which is a huge part of owning any of these machines, I got it down. I can cut out a frame in 20 minutes, right? So right away, I loved the fact that I was, instead of 2 days, and then I could whip through prototypes really quick. And then the main thing for me was precision. Right? If you're making anything and you're looking at by hand with the jigsaw and you think, oh, I want that to be 1/8 of an inch further. It's not necessarily an easy thing. Jigsaw's got 1/8 of an inch drift most of the time. But you go onto a laser or CNC router and you can work at that precision and make minor changes and minor adjustments and zero in on the thing that you want. That's the ability to make things I couldn't do by hand is what attracts me.
So I know that Stephane talked about it a little bit in the video as well, and you both have touched on it. So one of the things that I've heard a lot from our customers is that, and I don't have a CNC machine. I mean, it'd be a nice thing to also have. Like, I'm sure it'd come in handy, but now that I have the laser, I'm like, why would I get that one? But so the bits are quite expensive. And so I don't know if it's when you're learning or if you make a mistake, like maybe you could explain like situations in which like you break the bits or like have to replace them. Like how does that end up happening? And did you ever have that sort of concern or like frustration with the CNC
I would
router?
say that I would say 90% of the bits I broke were human error. It was my fault. I buy high quality, high carbon bits. Well, it depends on what I'm doing, but I buy things called insert bits. So the body of the tool is reusable. You just replace the blades. That makes a huge difference. But yeah, they're expensive. A compression bit for cutting plywood's easily 120, 130 more, depending. It gets more expensive the longer it gets, more expensive the rounder it gets. But no, honestly, I almost never replace them. They seem to last forever. And eventually I screw up and break one that's. But and then with the laser, I've replaced a set of lenses once. That's it. There's nothing, a thing of antifreeze for my water chiller. So very low maintenance on there to date. But both of them, it's not like I'm spending a ton of money to run them. When I cut with them, it goes pretty quick. So even though I charge a fairly high hourly rate, the actual time it takes is really fast compared to other options. And it seems to work for me.
Right. Same with me. All the bits I broke was either wrong setting or I moved the router by accident with my joystick and I dug into the wood. Bits, I bought some cheap bits. Of course, the cheap bits won't last as long and it'll burn the wood a bit more. If you buy a good bit, of course, it's going to last you longer. But with the CNC also, every bit, if you do in a bowl, you'll need 3 bits or 2 bits to do that. So you need to secure a piece of wood. Then you get your round bit and dug your hole, and then you go in with your different bit to do your pockets.
But in the same option, making a bowl like that on the laser is not even an option.
No,
you can't do it. So yeah.
So maybe don't get rid of your CNC if you still want to make bowls.
Oh, you absolutely need both. You need both.
Yeah.
So you touched on sort of like some of the human error things. I mean, obviously learning a new tool, you're gonna make mistakes and you're gonna have some wastage and stuff like that, or break bits or whatever it may be. When it comes to like learning the laser, like what's sort of like the things that you ran into and like mistakes you might have made, or like things that you learned that like was it as costly, or what were sort of some things? Like I know for me, like I'll do the project a couple times at least before I get something good, but I'm still learning. I'm in the beginner process here, but you guys have had yours for like a year. Well, how would you kind of describe that learning process, and just like any kind of what goes wrong, or what do you have, like I know people sometimes they don't realize they have to clean their lenses and they might have to replace them because they're not cleaning them often enough and things like that.
With the lasers, again, it's always, and pretty much all the mistakes you'll have will be operator error. So either your head's too low, you're going to bump into your material. But if you keep your head away from the material, the worst that could happen is you won't cut through your pattern, or you'll go too deep cutting wise, or the origin of your laser will start somewhere else in the corner. You'll burn your piece of wood the wrong spot. But honestly, the laser is pretty forgiving. If you mess up, you don't touch your piece of wood, you could start your file over again and off you go again. With the CNC, I was using easel, which is every bit is a different, I guess, window. And if I move the circle 0.8 of an inch, well, that bit, the second file will be off by 0.8 of an inch, right? Because it's different windows, different files. With the laser, it's all there as long as you get your settings right and your colors, your files, you're on the same pattern, you're good to go.
My favorite things about the laser is not having to worry about holding the material down too much. I use hold downs to take warps out of bent sheets, but this idea that I can be running and cutting things without having to screw them to my table and come up with clamping systems like you do with the router, that's huge for me. And you know, the one thing people don't think, like people see the CNC router or even the laser now, and they think, but especially with the CNC router, they think, oh, it's a computer machine that does the work for you. Throw some wood on, hit start, and it's going to work. But you know, there's like levels. When I'm programming, I'm thinking, because I do a lot of wood like cedar and Douglas fir that has long grains. So I'm thinking, okay, which way is the bit turning? Which way is the grain running? You know, maybe I need to come in from the side across the grain first before I run with it because it won't split. Like there's these little bits of things that you're always considering when you're getting ready. And you don't know that stuff until you make a lot of mistakes and figure out, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have, you know. And that's what I love about it. It's like the work doesn't disappear. Like, you know, if you're going to make a table by hand or make it with the CNC router, the work is still there. It's just in a different place. With the router or the laser, you're on the computer, you're programming, you're thinking in thousandths of an inch, you know, you got all these CAD software, and then you go and finish it. You know, with the handmade stuff, it's kind of the other way. So I just like the precision. I like sitting in front of CAD software and nudging things by a thousandth of an inch, and then going and making it.
Nice. So we have a question. Actually, it's been texted to me. So he was wondering why did you have to replace your lenses? Like, it was some sort of mistake, or was it just like what happened that you had to replace them? Like, in what situation would someone have to replace their lens?
I don't know. I had to replace my lens because when I took it off to clean it, I noticed a little crack. And I shouldn't say I had to replace it. It still seemed cutting, but I noticed the crack. And so I have a new one. And now the one with the little crack is my backup. I'm not sure what happened. I cut a lot of things. Sometimes I have it too hot. Sometimes I don't have, you know, I can't imagine I am surprised that when I first got my laser, I cleaned the lenses, you know, 2 or 3 times a day. Now I can I check it all the time, but sometimes it's 2 or 3 days before I need to clean the lens. And I think it's because I now have an external air source. So when I'm cutting through the sheets, I can really pump up the air. But I just got better at it. I just, you know, my feeds, my speeds they're all getting better, and that keeps the lens cleaner and everything working better. So, and once again, you have to learn that. One of my pet peeves with the online forums are people saying, what are your settings? What are your settings? And just figure it out. You're going to become much better at running your own laser, but my settings don't have anything to do with anyone else's settings because material, humidity, power, everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. I always start with something that's a little less than I think it will be, because like one of you said, it like you could always just keep it exactly where it is and press it, you know, again to engrave or cut deeper if you need to, which is always handy. If you do not move it, you can do that right from the controller and it's easy. Before we move on to the next section, I just wanted to touch on, some people are asking some questions. We're going to talk more about the machines and like the sizing and all that kind of stuff in a little bit. But someone is asking what type of materials and like how thick of materials are you like cutting and engraving on your lasers? And both of you have Nova 35s, right? I
have a 35-100. I regularly, these past 3 weeks, I've been cutting mostly Baltic birch 1/4 inch plywood. I've tested with 1/2 inch, gets a bit more charring, but you know, that's where the router comes in, right? Anything bigger, anything thicker, I can go to the router. But 1/4 inch Baltic birch, cheap, crappy plywood, I can't really cut it. I mean, it'll cut through parts of it, and then it'll hit a glue pocket or hit a knot inside. And then there are big gaps. It's very difficult. But the Baltic birch, like the real Baltic birch plywood, it cuts really nicely, very smooth. I've cut 1/2 inch natural wood, cedar, maple, no problem. So, you know, but most of the time I'm working in the 1/4 inch range and the laser, and then with the CNC router, you know, 1 inch Baltic birch is a regular material that I like to use.
Yeah, same thing with me. 1/2 inch and below, I'll use my laser. Anything above that, I'll go with my CNC. But this morning I was cutting 3/8 MDF, and I started off with a piece of Home Depot MDF, and I could not cut through it, maybe half, and it was just no good. And I got the good MDF from my local supplier. I think it's Ranger MDF. I cut through butter like no problem. No, a bit of charring, but it's expected as you go deeper or thicker. But 3/8, a quarter, just like butter. I cut half-inch walnut, no problem. As the thicker you go with the laser, you'll have a kind of a little groove because the laser beam kind of crosses and you get that little pocket. So I might cut it once in a while, but I'll have to do a bit of sanding and finishing by hand. It's probably faster to go to CNC and just cut it that way. That way you get less sanding and you don't have to get rid of the charred edge. But I could probably cut a 2x4 if I wanted to. Just a multiple pass.
So what Stephane's saying, and Ron as well, is it's not exclusively a thunder issue. Like a lot of people, when they first start out, you'll see it on the forums, on any laser forum. People often go, oh, I can just go to Home Depot and like on any laser brand and use that plywood or whatever. And you'll find that, yeah, the glues are kind of, they're not like high quality. It's not consistent. Like it's different. So that's why you see a lot of people talk about like Baltic birch and very specific brands of MDF are sort of favorites of a lot of laser nerds out there because they're very, like, once you find the brand that is like a higher quality, you'll notice like it's just so much easier to deal with. And it's not exclusively a thunder issue. It's definitely something everyone in the laser world probably experiences once or twice when they're first trying to find their materials of choice. And obviously, like, MDF's great if you're going to paint something or going to do something that's going to be inside. Once you actually want to show the wood grain, and it's nice to have the Baltic birch because it's got that nice surface on it that looks like grain.
It was a 3/8" that I cut this morning. I did not do a good job. I had to use like 3 passes. That was a Home Depot brand. You can see the charring. Not good compared to
like around here we have Windsor Plywoods. I know in Ottawa you guys have KJP. Like there's like Windsor Plywoods is a good place to get like higher quality stuff, and that's where a lot of, they'll have like someone that goes, yes, this is the laser stuff. Like they know exactly why you're looking for it. So I'm just gonna touch on some questions. So maybe I'll start off on, so like both the router and the laser use software. So can you sort of describe the process of like learning the software and sort of, if you'd never done it before, like how would you describe it? And like, what are sort of like the handy things about it / like some of the things that took a little bit to learn?
When I started off, when I bought my, I got a Onefinity woodworker. There was a 6 or 7 months waiting list for that CNC. So I was like, all right, if I buy it now, I can learn it. So, and I didn't want to be the guy that goes on the forums or Facebook and say, what's my settings or how do you do this? So a lot of YouTubes, a lot of videos. And by the time I probably watched like 50 hours of how to do it, how to set it up. And then I took my time, started off simple, and it wasn't too bad. Again, YouTube was my best friend. I watched that constantly. And I'm not computer literate, but I'm average, I guess. And it wasn't too bad. Lightburn for the software for the lasers is very often software.
For me, coming from animation, I had already been quite familiar with computer, creative computer software, Photoshop, Illustrator, all those things. So it wasn't a huge jump. But the advice that I would give is if you need to learn, you need to learn what vectors are. If you don't know vectors, don't worry about anything else. Just figure out what a vector path is, what a vector line is, what a vector shape, what nodes are, how you control them. Doesn't matter what program you learn that in, because they're all fundamentally the same. Then when you come to Lightburn, because Lightburn is only vector. If you're coming, well, I shouldn't say it's only, but it's, CAD software is mostly vector software. So if you're coming and you have a great understanding of pixels and bitmaps and raster images, and then you sit down to a vector program, you're not going to know what's going on. It's not difficult. It's just different, right? So, and then the advice I give to people, if you're sitting down to Lightburn, whether you know other software or not, just read the manual. They have an amazing manual. It breaks it down step by step. You're not reading it to learn. You're not reading it to close the book and go, oh, I know everything. But you learn terminology, you learn general processes, you learn, the stages of creating things. And then when you turn around to actually learn it, you have all that in the back of your head, and you'll be amazed at how quick you can get through. Things like the way Lightburn works with layering for controlling your laser, you're not really going to learn that any other software. That's a Lightburn thing. And I personally, I learned a program called Aspire to run my CNC router. It's quite pricey. It's very good. And now I have Lightburn for the laser. I most of the time go back to Aspire to do my general design, layout, setup. Then I export the SVGs into Lightburn, where I will, finesse it a little bit. Mostly because Aspire is so much more mature as a software. It's got a lot of nice little touches and things that I've become used to. Not because it's better, it's just the way I go. But Lightburn is great. And the software, the actual, like if you have a Nova, the Ruda software that's built into the machine, it's dead simple. It doesn't really take much of a learning curve at all.
Yeah, so for everybody that doesn't know, our machines aren't like tied to a specific software, so you can use other programs. So for example, it comes with RDWorks and that's free and you can use that, but we always recommend our customers get Lightburn. A lot of people in the laser world love it. It's a very affordable program because you only have to pay once. I think it's just it's now like $270, I want to say, or $250, something like that. I'm trying to translate in my mind from US dollars. Obviously not the salesperson. And a lot of our customers, like maybe they have done graphic design in the past, so you can totally design things on another program like Adobe Illustrator and then just export it as like an SVG file, and then you can bring it into Lightburn. We have a blog on our website that talks about all the different files that you can bring into Lightburn. And basically what you'll do in Lightburn or like any laser program is just define like which is the line and which is the fill, like which is the engraven, which is like the cut or the line, so that's sort of what the laser software does. But you can do all the designing in the laser software as well if you want to, but a lot of people kind of gravitate to the one that they like, got really good at using, which is totally fine. You can do that easily, and it's no problem. But yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to touch on was for both of you, I know a lot of customers are like, how do I make this into a business? Like, when did you start to notice that this was like a feasible business venture? And like, what were the signs things were working out? Like, what kinds of things were people buying? Like, did you have a lot of repeat customers? Like, where were you advertising? Like all that stuff. That's all the questions we get all the time.
Those are all such sensible questions. I considered none of them. I jumped off the cliff and I'm building my parachute on the way down. With that being said, I wasn't completely blind to what I was getting into, having already been familiar with the software. Like I understood the software. To me, buying the machinery was just a way of expressing my designs. I'm much more of a designer than a CNC router operator. But I had all these ideas. I had all these things I wanted to make. So I bought the tooling to be able to do that. And then that spreads out into the community who also wants things. So it was that simple. I've seen a lot of people in the forums thinking that they bought a turnkey business when they buy a laser. I'm not sure where that info comes from. I know it's advertised by some companies, but they think, oh, I'm going to buy this laser and it's going to sit on my desktop and I'm going to have a weekend business at the craft fair selling things. That's all completely viable, except you forgot the part where you have to learn how to do that. Right? It's like buying a car. A car is a turnkey solution for transportation, but it doesn't mean you don't have to learn how to drive and get your license. Right? It's the same thing. So don't think you're going to make money at it unless you know how to make money with it before you get it. That's all I would say, even though I didn't do it that way.
I think also being like a small community, like it's interesting because yeah, like you said, everyone knows what you do. So now all of a sudden they're all curious. So it kind of has like a little, there's definitely an added bonus if you get known as doing something here, especially. small place. What about you, Stefan? What was your experience sort of like learning the business part of it?
Yeah, well, this is still my hobby, but yeah, I bought the CNC machine to tinker around and build a few things, and a couple plans just to have fun with it. And again, I made one sign, put it on Facebook Market, I sold. I'm like, all right, I can maybe pay that off, in a year or so. And yeah, word to mouth, and then of course you got to put some time in. Like Ron said, you have to put the time in, uh, learn the machine, figure out how to finish it, how to paint it, how to whatever you got to do. But once you put, I only deal with Facebook because that's all I can deal with because Etsy or all the other programs or platforms, I think I'd be too busy. But it's if you put the good work in and you put the time in to learn it and own your skills, it's gonna come up and reward yourself with the customers for sure. And around Christmas time, that's when I actually kind of blew up. Like I worked right to December 22nd. I was working 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day in the garage trying to keep up. Like everybody wants something customized. That's for sure. As long as you advertise a bit and put the work in to do some good work, it's gonna pay off for sure.
And so most of your customers come in through Marketplace?
That's right. That word to mouth and Instagram. That's Facebook, Instagram, and word to mouth is my only place that I advertise or get customers from.
Nice. Yeah, I ask all of our customers this question, and it's funny how many people, yeah, Facebook Marketplace. It seems like word of mouth spreads.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Facebook Market could be a little tough. Yeah, Etsy could be tough too. It's almost like a race to the lowest price possible for your signs. And I see a lot of desktop lasers or smaller, and they make a sign, and I make a sign. I try to price accordingly to my market and the time. I don't try to rip people off. That's what the wood, the material, the primer, everything else. And some people are selling it for like $50 cheaper than I do. I'm like, how can you make money, right? So you do have to price yourself to make money a bit because you're not working for free because your tools are costing you money, your time, your paint, everything. And,
yeah, you're learning.
Yeah, and then with the machine here, it's pretty quick compared to the desktop lasers. And like, I don't know how people could. I know why people are surviving on the laser business because they're pricing themselves a bit too low.
That's why my approach has been like, if you look at it, there's thousands of people on Etsy and other places selling the same engraved Christmas ornament, the same cake topper for weddings, and that's fine. That's all valid. But I didn't want to be part of that competition. Most of the work I've done, especially with the CNC router, is custom work, right? If somebody comes and they want you to design a candy display unit for their store, then you can make actual money because they need it. They're not going to get it anywhere else. You're going to make it. You get to communicate with them about what goes into it, But if you make 50 candy display units and put them on the end of your driveway and think people are going to pay the same price, it doesn't work that way. So I do mostly custom work. It's very interesting, some of the projects you get that way, because you have, things you would never, ever anticipate come walking in your door. Oh, I need 20 of these. I need 50 of those. And now that I have the laser, I'm turning my focuses a little bit more towards actual product that I make in advance and then sell, which is the opposite of what I've done with the router. The reason that I do that is speed. And once again, I don't believe it can really make something making one or two of things. So when I'm looking at products, I'm thinking of blocks of 10, blocks of 50 or 100. How many can I make in a day is usually my whole business plan, right? If I can make 50 of these in one day and I want to make this much money per day, then each one of those must cost that much, right? It's very basic, but it kind of works. Yeah, that's all. So, sorry to conclude. It's really about the product and knowing what you want to do, right? Like anybody can buy this, and you can follow the crowds and do well, but you just need to understand why you're buying a laser. Like, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to make money? Do you even need to make money? The best thing I could have even imagined is owning a way cool laser and not having to make money with it. And I'd be playing all day long.
Yeah, you gotta pay for that wood somehow by projects. So I'm going to put a few links in the chat to some of our customers that do all different types of businesses. Like, we have a pretty wide range of customers. Like, we have people doing miniature models. We have people doing, you know, signs is like a very common one, and swag for like new businesses. Like a restaurant might want a bunch of like coasters or something like that. Keychains, you know, patches for hats for employees, like, you know, so there's lots of opportunities to do like sort of mass production, especially for small business, because small business understands how important it is to support other small businesses. And sometimes if you get in with those people right when they're starting up, they're always going to go to you, and they're going to recommend you to all their other friends that run small businesses, because it's like this little network. So we have some customers, for example, like in Saskatchewan, we have Sticks and Doodles who do Christmas ornaments, and they exclusively market their stuff in their area, and they do custom ornaments for like workplaces, for like, you know, for all the employees at a company, or like specific sort of like regional things. Like they have like the, you know, stuff that's very specific to Saskatchewan. I saw recently they put out this really cool ornament that's like, you know, it looks like a Christmas or like a snowflake, but it's like wheat. so it's very Saskatchewan. And they're just doing so well. They have like something like, I don't know, 13 staff or something like that, 7 of our machines. And they're, you know, they just love Christmas. And so they were like, this is what we like doing. We could have done a lot of different businesses and probably made more money, but they love Christmas. So I think people just feel that, like when they hang out with them, or they see their like ads or like their videos and stuff that they make, it's like you kind of want to be a part of their fun, and you want to contribute to what they're doing, and you get to bring something home as well. So I'll put a link to a blog that we wrote about them. They're our ambassadors as well. They were like one of our very, very first customers. And that's only like 3 years ago. And they now license logos from like the Saskatchewan Roughriders, CBC Hockey Night in Canada. So they're doing some pretty interesting stuff. Another customer we have, Danielle, she's a full-time chiropractor, and she had never lasered before, and she started doing laser engraved like tumblers and mugs and stuff like that. And she started the business with her mom, and in the first like 3 months or something, she paid off her machine, and she's making almost as, I think probably even more by this point, than her full-time job doing this on the side. And so those are just like a couple examples, but we also have a customer who's also an ambassador that's out of Winnipeg, and he does like screen printing and stuff. So he has the laser to make like patches for hats and things. So he'll get like bands writing to him, like a lot of bands. It seems like a lot of bands and things like that. Or he was into biking, so I think there's lots of like competitive sports stuff. And it's really interesting, the stuff that he puts out there. So if you ever go on our Facebook and like look at who we're following and then who we're sharing, like those are the people that are usually very active and doing very well. We have Sarah Harling, she's one of our ambassadors, and she has 2 of our machines as well. So we'll go into the part about the machines now, but she's doing like, you know, customs of sort of everything people throw at her, but primarily like custom signs for businesses and stuff like that. And I'd say like that's a kind of cool route to go down, because like you start off with a sign and you end up doing all their swag, and you know, so I'll pull up the different machines here, but do you 2 want to talk about your machines and like why you chose the size you did, and you know what's your thought process of choosing the laser that you chose, and like the model you chose?
I chose a 51 inch, and the day, and I thought about it back and forth for a few days, and then the day I put my order in, they told me that they just sold the last one, and I would have to wait like 10 weeks or something. So I ordered the 35 with a 100-watt tube. And what I didn't know at the time is if you get the 100-watt tube, it has this big extension out the side.
It's a little longer than the machine.
Yeah.
Weird.
I had custom built the room to put there it is there. I had custom built the room to put the laser in, And luckily I had built it for the bigger one, the 50, the 51 inch, so that when the 35 came with that extra bit, it still fit. Although I have to zig the way around it to get into the room. But in hindsight, you know, I haven't needed a larger one. I do lots of like multiple runs of things. And you know, there are times where I could put larger pieces of wood in. But really with the 35, if I did anything, eventually I get a second 35 instead of a bigger one for the projects that I'm working on anyways. And plus, like I said before, the CNC router can do 4 foot by 8 foot. So it's not an issue if I need to cut something bigger.
Yeah. Combining them together, especially because you have a big CNC. So I'm sure you can get some things done on that if it's bigger than the laser bed. I know a lot of people ask about like making signs and doing like the backers and stuff, and doing that on the laser. So often, actually, I think that like Stephane, maybe you should chat because I know you were talking about getting a bigger one. So what's your thought process and about the 35?
Yeah. So I bought the Nova 3500 watts. At first, I was making signs that were all like 2 feet and below, so I'm like, that'd be perfect. I could go up to 36 inches or 35 inches if I want to. But once in a while, I get an order for a 6-foot piece of custom sign for anybody. And a lot of times, I got to piece it together and make a kind of stack layer piece of wood, which no problem. It just you can see the little edge, the seam on it. So I got to put putty and paint it, make sure it's nice and flush. With the 51 inch, I could put a full sheet of plywood if I wanted to. Actually, cut it in half. That fits my bed instead of taking out my track saw, my table saw, and cut it. Just the dust, right? I'm in a 2-car garage, not insulated. I got a heater in here, but in the winter, I got to open the door so I could cut outside. It's cold. If I had the 51 inch, I could just put the piece of plywood, press start, and cut it in half, or cut it to the size and just stack my piece of wood. Hopefully
yeah, that's a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
No, hopefully I'll like to get a bigger one and be even a bolt for my tumblers. I do a lot of tumblers too, and it'd be good to get just a mug machine just for the mugs or engraving for like glass or ornaments, stuff like that, just for engraving, and one just for cutting. And
yeah, as soon as people start to do more, they tend to like having like sort of dedicated machines for specific things. Like Sticks and Doodles just bought a bolt from us, and they're just doing their tumblers and stuff like that, or you know, smaller projects on it. So yeah, I'll talk more about the different laser types. So I have a Thunderbolt. I have a background here so you can't see it, but I can take it off. It's a very easy to, I mean, they're all very easy to use. There's a lot of similarities between them, even though they're different models. Like it's sort of the same process to learn them. They're just different types of laser tubes. So for example, the Thunderbolt, it's like a smaller machine. It has a 20 by 12 bed. We have the Bolt Plus, and then there's 2 slightly bigger models, the 22 and the 32. I'll put a link in here in a minute. And those machines, they can cut, but they're highly optimized for engraving. So if you have really small stuff, or like photos, or like you want to get high detail on like a tumbler, it has like enough Z-axis. So you can do tumblers, you can do, you know, dog bowls, things like that. And so for a small machine, it kind of has a lot of abilities. It's a great starter machine if you're not really sure. And you know, you don't want to invest like as much as like a Nova, for example. It's around the same price point as like a Glowforge, but you just get so much more. Like it's actually like a manufacturing quality machine, whereas a Glowforge is like a hobby machine, right? So there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. But if you're kind of considering starting a business with it, like it's just a much tougher machine. Like it's you can tell the difference. It's girthier, it's heavy duty. A lot of people describe our machines kind of like military equipment, or like beast. They use the word beast. It's like really funny. You said the same thing. Stuff, it's a beast. Or like it's you know, it's Jess Seaton said the same thing. Just like, I did not tell them that. They just describe it that way. And that's you know, even though it's a small machine, the Thunderbolt is like, it is a beast. Like it can do a lot for a small machine. I put a link in the Q&A here to Thunder Laser, different settings for different materials. So you'll see the wattages at the top. The Thunderbolt is a 30 watt, like the original Thunderbolt. And then we have like the other models, and it goes up to 55 watt. But it's a RF tube, so it's just a different technology. So for example, my 30 watt RF tube Thunderbolt puts out a similar amount of power to like a 60 watt glass tube, like a Nova 24. So I can just plug it into the wall, and I don't have to like rewire, add electrical or anything like that. It's a very easy machine to just add to your house without really prepping too much. It can fit in most places, so that's a good option for some people. You are limited in the thickness of the material you can do, just simply because it's it only has so much power. It has different lenses, so you can like switch them out to do different projects. Like for example, if you have a water bottle and it's tapered, if you get a lens that's like 1.5 inches, it's only going to focus like this. So when your bottle tapers, it will be out of focus on this end. So you switch the lenses depending on the projects you do. So you use like the 4-inch lens, for example, on like for like doing a water bottle or slightly thicker material. The same idea for like the other lasers as well. So that one's an RF tube laser, the Thunderbolt series. Then we've got the ones that Ron and Stephane have, which are glass tube lasers. And so before I jump to that, I'll just say the RF tube laser, the Thunderbolt, that one, it doesn't need to be replaced. You can recharge it, but you don't have to recharge it very often. It'd be like 8 to 10 years. You can recharge it. Whereas the glass tube machines, which are the Nova series that they have, you do have to replace the tube every few years. It just depends on the amount of hours you use it. So it's like somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 hours. And that's about like $900 or so. And a lot of people will usually go like at least like 2 years before they have to replace. Have you guys had to replace your tubes yet?
No.
No, I've only had mine a year, but it just, in reference, there's all your CNC router bits. You just pay for it all in one go instead of that's
yeah, exactly, over time. Yeah, so that I would say like for the glass tube machines, yes, you do eventually need to replace the tube. You'll get quite far before you do. And then the only other thing is like, yeah, just keep your lenses clean. And you don't have to replace things constantly or anything like that. It's just it's once you get going, it's not super expensive. I think most of the stuff that it's usually the materials. If you do acrylic's kind of expensive. But,
and that relates to that relates to something you mentioned earlier, Z, about when you're doing your settings, trying to get it as low as you can, right? You can just always put it at 100% and cut through anything. But if you can cut it at 20%, then you're saving 80% of your laser time. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, right? Your laser's going to last longer if you run it at 20% power than if at 100% power.
That's right. I had mine for a year and a half. I was trying to find the amount of time I got it through, amount of miles I used for cutting. The last time I checked, I had over 4,000 jobs that I pressed. Sometimes it's just a little circle that's like a half an inch. But in a year and a half, and I use the machine almost every day, at least an hour to like 4, 5, 6 hours a day. And I could tell that my 100 watt is probably more like a 90. I got to bring my settings a little higher to keep up, but that's all it is with 100 watt. You're losing a bit of power every time you use it. Well, pretty much, yeah. And like Ron said,
and to be honest, even talking about this, it's a little more alarming than it actually is.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing. I knew all of this before I bought my laser, but it's never been anything I've worried about. It's going to last as long as it lasts, and from everything you read, they last a long time. So I'm not.
Yeah, I ran mine quite a bit, and still no problem. Sometimes it's just the wood itself. If you've got a different supplier, and you're cutting your 1/4 inch MDF, and for some reason it's not cutting, it may be it was a Friday afternoon, and the guys put more glue in the boards instead of Monday morning.
Well, it's interesting because, like you said, it's the same with me. I have an unheated, uninsulated shop where my laser is and everything, and just the temperature change could make me have to change my settings. Especially out here in BC, like the moisture, I get 3 or 4 days of rain in an unheated shop, and now it takes more power to cut through that MDF or that plywood than it did when it was hot in the summer. Correct. You just have to roll with that and figure it out.
Yeah, and then same with the Novas, they come with a chiller, right? So if it's plus 30 and the sun's beating, the doors are open, the chiller's working a lot harder to keep the tube cool. So again, you're losing a bit of power, like environmental issues will affect your laser cutting 100%.
Yeah, and not just thunder related. That's like every laser.
Every laser, yeah.
Yeah. So there's just a few minutes left. I'm happy to go just a couple minutes over so we can get to the last questions. But Stephane also has one of our other lasers. It's a fiber laser, the Aurora series. Do you want to talk more about the Aurora? And I'll put a link here for people if they want to check it out. That one, I definitely know that's like not one people know as much about. So it's kind of cool that you have one right there in your shop, Stephane.
Yeah, I just got it maybe 3 weeks ago. I've been playing with it. Of course, I'm using my Thunder Laser Nova more now. I still got it because Christmas is coming. I'm already in Christmas orders. But for engraving like business cards, I've been playing with those leather patches, coins. I've been doing a lot of coins for just to play around. A totally different machine. It's like an add-on to what I'm doing already. I bought that because you could buy the fiber lasers from different companies, but the Nova itself, the reason I bought it is an enclosure. You don't need the glasses. If my kids
you mean
walk
the Aurora, right?
Aurora Light, sorry. And I could just close the door and then it's safe. I know my kids can walk around or look, see what I'm doing, and it's safe. Still experimenting with all the settings because it's a little different than the Nova itself. You get different frequencies and different things. So I'm playing around with that, but again, it's fast, accurate, super crisp on metal.
Yeah, and Pyburn just put out a rotary specifically for fiber lasers that'll fit in it's like a smaller bed size. It's like a desktop kind of like upright machine. Like if you'll see if you click the link, and you could use one of our other rotaries in there and just have the door open. But if you want to be safe, you can like close it and have a smaller rotary that's just like one end basically. So that's what they just put out recently. I'll put a link if anyone's interested.
And it's a good point. It's something that I had to learn when I first got my laser, is that lasers aren't all about power; they're about wavelength. Which
Oh yeah, there's that one. That's the one made by Thunder, and then we also have one that was just put out by Lens Digital as well. So I'll put a link. It's just a brand new one. So we have a couple minutes left, and we have someone to ask, like, how do you set the chiller temperature? Does someone want to field that question?
As for me, I plugged it in and make sure it's on, and that was it.
Yeah, that was pretty much my scientific approach as well. I plugged it in, it came on. I never thought about it again, except I put antifreeze in because I don't have a heated shop.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. I got antifreeze, and I change it every beginning and after winter just to make sure it doesn't freeze. I don't want to crack my tube.
Yeah.
But my garage gets down to about 4 degrees and never an issue at all. Yeah. When it's in summertime, sometimes it runs hot because my garage doors are right here, and around 3 o'clock the sun just beating in. A couple of times I got it down to like pretty high, so I just stopped it by 20 degrees. First of all, it was too hot for me to work. It was time for the pool, and then but yeah, no problem, just plugged it in. And if you don't turn it on, light burn, or the laser will not let you run without the chiller.
Yeah, that's the wonderful thing about the Novas anyways, is the chiller plugs into the laser. You don't have to remember to turn it on, turn it off. It's controlled by the actual laser when you run it. So that's what I meant when I just plugged it in and didn't think about it. I've seen online there are, you should have it at this temperature or this degree, and you can change it, but I've never, and everything seems fine. So
yeah, it reminds me I should put that a newsletter out to everyone about winterizing their lasers. I think a lot of people are like you, where they have like they're using their garage or something like that, and we're all in Canada, so no matter where you are, it's going to be cold. Yeah. So yeah, if you can put antifreeze in it, and that's just for the machines like the Nova series. The other machines you don't need to do that.
And I'll note it's not just antifreeze, and there's a specific type that you want to get. You'll find it online as soon as you start searching. I can put the link.
It's the kind that you don't mix with water. So I'll put a link in here.
I think it's RV antifreeze.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it actually has something to do with the ability of that fluid to work with high frequency electric. I don't know. I read some cool thing. I thought, oh, that's why, but I can't remember enough to explain. But
Yeah, it's on our blog anyway. I'm trying to find it, and I'm like, where did it go? So yeah, if this is probably the time of year you want to read that blog and see what antifreeze to put in your laser. We have an article on our site, but also Thunder, like the Thunder USA and the knowledge base also has information, but we put a link to, like, stuff you can commonly find at like Canadian Tire type stuff. So if you already have a laser or you're thinking about it and you're concerned about that, there's a blog about that as well. It's 10 on the dot. Great job, everyone. I hope people got their questions answered. Feel free to email sales@thunderlaser.ca or message us on our social media and we can answer questions for you. After, when this webinar finishes, you'll be directed to a page on our site that shows the different machines and the prices and stuff like that. So hopefully that'll answer your questions there. And thank you so much to our awesome co-hosts who I think you did a great job explaining sort of like the world of lasers and making and CNCs. And yeah, really appreciate you being here. And thanks everyone for coming. See ya. And you can find this on our YouTube playlist. I'll upload it there.